This is the Jaecoo J5 EV, a new budget-friendly small SUV that's fully electric with more than 400 k's of range and a standard equipment list that might make you very impressed. And in this review, I'll tell you all about it, what it's like to drive, and some great alternatives to it too. So let's check it out. Jaecoo J5 time. At launch, there's just one version of the Jaecoo J5 in Australia, the fully electric one at $36,990 drive away for the first 1,000 customers. But if you are one of those first 1,000, you get premium paint as standard, and after that, the price will change a little bit, down to $35,990 plus on-road costs, so around $38,500 drive away, which is still very strong value considering what you're getting. And if you're not into the idea of fully electric, there's going to be a petrol model, and there's also going to be a hybrid version of this SUV coming soon, probably starting under $30,000 for the petrol, bit more for the hybrid. So it could be a very good choice for you if you're looking for any of those powertrains. But let's talk about what you're getting as standard, because the list is extensive. You get full LED lighting all around the car. There's 18-inch alloy wheels with aero covers and Continental tires, which is great. A power tailgate. You get keyless entry and push button start. On the inside, there's a fake leather trim, which is a new trim that is pet friendly, apparently. It's also supposedly scratch and odor resistant, so maybe that's why it's pet friendly. But it's got also electric front seat adjustment. You've got heated and ventilated front seats too. And there's plenty of other great features like dual zone climate control, an 8.8-inch driver info screen, a 13.2-inch touchscreen media system with wired and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you've got wireless phone charging as well. Plus, there's plenty of other things on the inside, which I'll show you when we get to that. And if you're wondering about the charging cables, well, you get a trickle charger, an 8-amp trickle charger included, but not a faster charging cable, so you'll have to pay extra for that. And speaking of the accessories, there's a few interesting ones. You can get this car, because it's pet friendly, with a dog carrier, a leash, there's also dog bowls, and there's even a cat carrier if that's what you're after, plus some cargo partitioning systems and a karaoke system. No karaoke in this review though. So let's talk about some alternatives that you might otherwise want to consider. Firstly, if you're after something small, fully electric, and with that SUV stance, have a look at the BYD Atto 2, because it starts at $31,990 plus on-road costs, so around 35 grand drive away for that base model, and closer to this price for the high-spec one. But you're getting heaps and heaps of standard goodies, a fair bit less EV driving range though, and some charging considerations that you might want to keep in mind for that one. But it is a very nice thing to drive and pretty well packaged as well. If you're a keen driver, it might be worth having a look at the MG S5 EV. It's a rear-wheel drive electric SUV, a little bit bigger than this, and it does have extra practicality as a result of that. But it has a bit less range, and the price is just over $40,000 officially. You might be able to get one for less than that if you shop around, because there are deals to be done. And if you are thinking about an MG, you can still get it with a conditional 10-year warranty, and that might be a nice deal sweetener. But if you're okay with spending just a little bit more money, and maybe you just want a slightly larger SUV, the GAC Ion V would be one to consider, because it starts at around $42,500, but it's a bigger vehicle with more than 500 k's of range and some really fast charging capability as well. It's great specification wise, and it's great in terms of the space, so it could be really worth spending the extra money to get the bigger SUV with the bigger battery and bigger driving range. But what do you think? Is this one the sweet spot in terms of price? It seems pretty strong, doesn't it? Jaecoo calls this a big, small SUV, and you'll see from the dimensions on your screen that it's actually pretty much in the sweet spot for small SUVs at just under 4.4 meters long. And look, it does have that boxy look to it, kind of like a mini Range Rover. And in terms of the ground clearance, you'll see on screen there, it's going to be curb hopperable, but not a serious off-roader. It is a front-wheel drive SUV after all, but let's have a look at the back-end design. So you do have the typical thin taillight finish, and you've got a few badges at the back to contend with, and you've still got the old holes in the tailgate in terms of the Chinese plate that we don't have. But J5 there, Jaecoo up there, and also EV down there. Now we'll get to the EV stuff later on, but let's have a look in the boot and see what we're working with in terms of the space. It does have some good considerations in here, I have to say. You'll see on screen now, that's with the boot floor lowered, the cargo capacity, and to the ceiling as well. So you'll have to remove the cargo cover, which is standard. But if you are after a very practical small SUV in terms of the boot space, this one does sort of nail the brief, I've got to say, in some ways at least. So unfortunately, you'll see right there, tyre repair kit. So underneath here, there is no spare wheel, which is a shame because there's bloody well space for one. A space saver would fit in there pretty nicely. There's even a little mounting point for it. So I don't know why they've made the decision not to include one, but that's the case. And on this side, you'll see you've got a little cargo net section. There's drop down points here for shopping bags. There's lights on that side. And on this side, there's a little point here where you can put a rechargeable light. And there's here, another drop down cargo hook. Excuse the mess, someone spilt sunscreen in here before. And you've also got cargo net, 12 volt. And as I said, this floor section can actually be raised up so you can have a bit of a flatter load lip if that's what you need. Maybe you've got dogs, or maybe you just like to have easier access into the boot. But that does make a difference, I've got to say. And there's a frunk, so let's check that out. Yes, there you go. As you can see, you could probably put your charging cables in there and your tyre repair kit and still have space to spare. It is a decent sized cargo capacity for the frunk, and there's even drainage points. So if you wanted to, you could fill it up with ice and drinks for parties or whatever. Camping, who knows? But yes, kind of practical, isn't it? Now let's check out the interior and see what the practicality is like in there. Alrighty, let's have a look at the interior of the J5, and it feels pretty good. I've got to say, for the money, this is a nice cabin treatment. And if you're wondering if you can get it with a different color trim, if you don't like this light colored trim, well, after the first 1,000 vehicles have arrived, there will be black interior trim as an option. So that's nice to see. What's also nice to see, you get ambient lighting as standard too. And I've got to say, the material finishing is quite good. This is a fake leather trim, but as I said, it's been designed to be more stain resistant and odor resistant and scratch resistant, so pet and kid friendly according to the brand. So the seat comfort is actually really good. This material feels quite nice, and the fact that you've got heated and ventilated front seats is a big fat bonus in my mind. Now the trimming, as you can see, you've got the blue stitching up here and on the seats themselves, and the finishing up on the dashboard is quite tidy, I've got to say. That is a soft plastic material. You got soft plastics up here and soft materials where there should be down here. So all looking and feeling pretty good to the first touch mindset. And you've also got the fake leather steering wheel trim, again with the blue stitching, which is nice. And let's have a look at what is going on this steering wheel. So you've got your gear selector there, you've got your blinkers and wipers on that side, and your lights are down there in a conventional dial situation, plus an electronic boot opening switch. And on the steering wheel, you've got a number of controls. As you can see, if I turn off the lights to make it a little bit brighter, there we go. You've got your media controls on this side and voice control. And on this side, you've got your cruise control things, including the middle one, which is to activate the autopilot if you want that on, or autopilot, let's say. So then there's this 13.2-inch touchscreen media system, which does have heaps and heaps of usability to it. It's pretty bloody good, I've got to say. Now, you've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and if you have your phone connected, you'll see there are no sections at the bottom to go back to the quick menus, but if you just swipe up like that, you've got that menu down there. And if you go from the top, you've still got access to the drop-down menu when you've got it on CarPlay. So that's great in my mind. Back to the main screen though, how do we get there? Exit, there we go. And this screen itself, if you don't use smartphone connectivity like that, then you do have a number of other menus on screen here, as you can see, including your surround view camera system, which is AVM, around view monitor. It's got multiple different view modes, and it's a really good system. You can drag and drop and have a look and see where you are and look at the back wheels or the front wheels or the front, you know, there's so many different views available to you. It's very high tech, and if you're a nervous parker, that might be music to your ears. There's also a media control system here, so you can do radio if you wish, including FM, AM and DAB digital. And then if you go back to the home screen once more, you can set up a gallery and even have your images on the screen if you prefer. Yes, there is a karaoke system if you want to play karaoke. Again, I am not doing that in this review. So there's, beyond that, your manual is on the screen here. So your owner's manual to find out anything you don't know about the car. And here you'll find some car controls. So that car menu down there is an important one. As you can see here, there's a number of different things that you might want to go on screen to adjust, including your charge limit, your vehicle to load situation, because it does have up to 3.3 kilowatts vehicle to load, your regen braking, and also whether your range display is standard or dynamic. Dynamic being it will change the display up on this driver info screen depending on how you've been driving. So if I put it in standard, it's 311, but someone must have been driving quite efficiently because, well, we'll get to the efficiency stuff later on. Now here you've also got your vehicle settings that you can adjust. So there are multiple different things that you can adjust in terms of the vehicle, including the steering weighting and also the brake feel, which I'll talk more about later on. The driver assistance stuff is all on screen there as well, but as I said, there is a drop down menu. If I get it right, it's from this side. Yep. There is a drop down menu from the screen here, so you can quickly turn off and configure this how you want it to be. So that's great. Beyond that, you've got ambient light adjustment, as you can see there, and there's a number of other system settings that you might want to jump into. But honestly, you'll get used to most of the controls in here relatively quickly, I would suggest. And yeah, it's all pretty nifty, I've got to say. If you're wondering about the glass roof, well, you do have a toggle switch up here for the glass roof blind, which you can quickly use if you prefer to use the toggle switch, but there's also a way you can do it on the screen there. And it's a nice big glass roof, isn't it? Let me show you a wide view. There we go. 1.45 meters of square meters of that, apparently. Get grab handles up there and up there, not for the driver. And overhead, there is illuminated vanity mirrors. These don't adjust out though, and you don't get an auto dimming rear vision mirror, just a flicky mirror. But you do get a USB port up there for a dash cam, which is actually super duper handy. And let's have a look at some of the other inclusions here. Now, I didn't get to the buttons below the screen. There's just a couple, no volume dial, but you do get a drive mode selector, so you can jump through the different modes. It shows up on the screen there as well. And you've also got hazard lights and lock system. And you've got a wireless phone charger on that side with ventilation. It's a 50-watt charger, so it should do the job pretty quick. And another spot there to store an extra phone. Cup holders here, which is good. And in here, there's a little console bin, which actually goes in underneath there a little bit. So good amount of space. And down there, you get some snakes. I'm sure if you asked your dealer, they'll throw in some snakes, but you also get USB ports and extra storage, which is great. In the doors, you've got some extra storage again with hard plastic, so things might rattle around. And thankfully, let's have a look at some of the other normal controls, the day-to-day shit that you actually use all the time. Window switches, all there normal. Mirrors, they're normal. Door handles, they're normal. And those things might be enough to make you go, actually, this one might make more sense than some of the others, because, I mean, I don't know why you have to rethink opening and shutting the doors or putting up the windows, but some brands think you do. All right, let's jump into the back seat and see what it's like. This seat here is set for my driving position. I'm 6 foot tall and I have a decent amount of space here, although my knees are relatively tight up against the seat back. Once I got my feet in, I had a little bit of wiggle room, but getting them in is a little bit tight too. So it's maybe not for those who have really big kids. Height for overhead is not too bad, but with the shade shut, it's a little bit worse. And overhead here, you do have grab handles and little lights as well. So that's great if you do have kiddos. We'll get to some other kid considerations soon. There are map pockets on the seat backs. There's also bottle holders in the doors, again, unlined, but you do get these little grab handles, which are quite a big grab handle, in fact, with soft padding. And up here, there's a little light too. So that actually will warn you if something's coming from behind and you might not be able to see it. So that's great. Now, there's one issue down here that I want to point out, actually two. So first one, only one directional air vent. Second one, only one USB port. And that could be a fight causer if you have argumentative children. Now, ISOFIX points in the window seats, 3 top tethers, a flip down armrest with cup holders. The seats don't recline to offer you extra lay-back ability, but I have to say, I reckon that the space and comfort is competitive for a small SUV like this. And the features are pretty decent too. Just wish there were a few more vents and USB charge ports. No point really opening the bonnet of this one because there's just a frunk in there, but it is also home to the front mounted electric motor for this vehicle. 155 kilowatts, 288 Newton meters of torque, and yes, a single speed transmission with front wheel drive, and it does 0 to 100 in 7.7 seconds if you can get that power down, but we'll get to that later on. And also I'll throw some weights up on the screen there so you can see for yourself. This is not a heavy electric vehicle, it's not a big one either, but let's talk about the range and charging considerations that you need to keep in mind. This SUV has a 58.9 kilowatt hour LFP battery pack, offering up 402 kilometers of WLTP rated range. And as you can see, the charge port is on the driver's side at the front, which could be an issue if you're a street parker, because, well, it's not ideal, is it? But there is AC charging at a rate of 10.3 kilowatts. You will need 3-phase power to take advantage of that. And then you've got DC power, 130 kilowatt maximum rate, which should mean a recharge time of about 28 minutes from 30 to 80%. And it, yes, does have V2L, vehicle to load capability at up to 3.3 kilowatts too. So that's pretty good, I've got to say. There's a little button there to press to close that port up. And I reckon that from what I've seen, the efficiency is pretty good with this electric SUV. But let's go drive it and I'll show you what it's like. All right, let's talk about the drive experience. First and foremost, you don't need to press a button to start it. Just sit in, seatbelt on, foot on the brake, and you can put it into drive, which might take some getting used to, I have to say. But more generally, this drive experience shouldn't take too much getting used to, because in a lot of ways, it's quite approachable, quite easygoing, and not necessarily the most demanding thing to drive. So if you are after just an easy step up from an internal combustion vehicle, maybe you've got a small SUV or a bigger SUV and you're thinking about downsizing, this one should be a fairly good fit, I would suggest. It's not the sharpest tool ever made in terms of the drivability. There's certainly some things that I think could be improved, but for the price, it seems to be appealing enough for this type of SUV. And certainly you do have a good amount of grunt from this powertrain. So let's talk about it first. In fact, that could be an issue in some instances because the grunt might be too much for the tires to cope with. Even though they're very good tires, you can really easily squeal them if you just quickly accelerate out of a intersection or a standstill. So just be mindful, you need to be careful with your throttle application because it can get away pretty quickly. Now, it doesn't have any gears to worry about because it's a single speed transmission, and so that makes it pretty easy to live with. And the gear selection is by way of the column mounted shifter, so it's pretty quick to actuate. You just easily go into reverse, then back into park. Some other new vehicles, you really have to be mindful about how much you have to press the brake down and really put the gear into gear. Not this one, it seems fairly well measured. And yes, you do have different drive modes as well. If I put it into sport, yeah, it goes a little bit faster. If I put it into eco, it dulls things down and makes it a little bit more progressive feeling. Now, other things about the drive experience, well, it isn't the most fun small SUV to drive. So if you are looking for that, there might be better options out there. But I do think that for an urban SUV or a country town car, it could be a really good fit because it does manage to be predictable enough in terms of the steering response and the handling. There's different steering modes, so you can change the weighting of it, but it doesn't necessarily change the thrill factor, let's say. It's just not that kind of car, and that's okay because it's not trying to be. Now, when it comes to the ride comfort, well, I've been driving today in southern Sydney and around, and I have found the ride to be quite firm and a little bit sharp feeling at times, particularly if you go over broken patches of surfacing. You might find that it's not the most agreeable in terms of the ride comfort. So if you're the sort of person who has bum sensitivities or you just don't like a rough riding car, maybe take it for a test drive and see if it'll work for you, because I think it is a little sharp feeling, and it does obviously have lots of extra body stiffness to accommodate for the battery pack. So it does feel quite stiff and not necessarily that yielding in terms of the general comfort. But I don't say that it's uncomfortable, I just say that it's probably more towards firm than cushy. So yeah, keep that in mind. It does have a pretty short wheelbase and a lot of weight to manage as well. So those might be considerations for you. Just depends on what you like and don't like, quite frankly, because generally I've got along reasonably well with this electric SUV. I don't love it, but I don't think that you're going to hate it either. And one of the reasons that I don't think you'll hate it is the integration of the safety tech. It's actually really well done here. So there is a driver monitoring camera. It can be a little bit chatty at times, especially if you're talking to someone or you're just looking at the screen, but maybe that's because you're looking at the screen or just not concentrating on the road. And then there's the lane keeping assist, which I found to be reasonably good. It's not the greatest, but it's certainly not the most frustrating either. And the speed sign, a warning system, is silent, so that's great too. Oh, and also I should tell you about the brakes, and well, the brake pedal feel might take some getting used to. It does have regen braking with 3 different modes, I guess you'd call it, to adjust between the different assertiveness of the regen braking. And for me, it's okay. It's not perfect though. You can really get it to be a bit more aggressive in the highest setting for that regen braking. In the lower settings, it's a bit more lenient, obviously. And the actual pedal feel, well, it's just not the most measured, not the most progressive when you put your foot on the brake. So those, again, little things that could be ironed out, but honestly, not deal breakers. And I think that's the thing here. No real deal breakers with this one. It seems pretty good. But what about efficiency? Okie doke. On your screen now, you're going to see the official energy consumption figure for this vehicle, and that is a good number. If you can achieve that, I think you'll be really happy with things. And you're more likely to achieve that in urban driving, stop-start, because you'll be using that regen braking system to replenish the battery more often. If you're wondering what I've seen, it hasn't been my normal driving today. It's been a bit more urban focused and also not necessarily as much freeway, but the number I've seen is on your screen, just over 16 kilowatt hours per 100. That's pretty decent for a small electric SUV like this. So I think that, you know, the realistic range is around 370 to 380 Ks if you can achieve that kind of efficiency number. And even better if you do more urban driving potentially. So yeah, again, not a whole lot to whinge about here. At the time I'm filming this, there's no safety rating for this vehicle, but it does have all the tech and spec to potentially achieve a maximum 5-star score, including things like autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. There's lane keeping assistance. There's advanced cruise control as well, so it can do stop, start and steer for you. There's speed sign recognition, so it can even abide by the rules if you want it to. And there's also a driver monitoring camera system. Thankfully, it doesn't seem to be too overbearing, and nor does any of the other technology. So that's a big plus for this vehicle. It's not perfect, but it's certainly better than some of the earlier examples from this Chinese conglomerate. Now, when it comes to the other features, there's blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, and you've also got a surround view camera system and parking sensors, so it's got all the parkability stuff pretty much sorted. Plus, there are 7 airbags fitted to this car. So there's dual front, front side, a front center airbag to prevent head clashes, and curtain coverage for both rows of window seats. Seems like a safe bet to me. Jaecoo is offering a pretty strong ownership promise for this vehicle. So there's an 8-year unlimited kilometer warranty for the vehicle itself. Then there's the battery warranty, which is also 8 years and unlimited kilometers. Then there's the servicing program, which is 8 years and 160,000 kilometers. And yes, that means that your service intervals are every 12 months or 20,000 Ks. So very generous if you know that you're going to be doing a lot of distance. It could be a very strong fit for your lifestyle. And then there's roadside assistance for up to 8 years as well if you do service with the brand's network of workshops. So in theory, it seems really strong in terms of the ownership experience potential here. But have you had any experience with Jaecoo, Omoda or Chery? Make sure you have your say in the comments. I'd love to read about it. This small electric SUV seems to have the price right and the standard spec right. 400 Ks of range seems realistic as well, so it's just whether you like the drive experience or not that might be the decision maker for you. But what would you do? Have this, have one of those alternatives I mentioned earlier, or something completely different? Make sure you have your say in the comments. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and ring the bell so you're notified when I get a chance to do a drive of the petrol and the hybrid versions of this car. See you when I see you.